So, if you've written the paper, you can cast your mind back to your very first paper and realize how horrible that was. Because writing is hard. This is one of my favorite papers of all time. It is titled "The Unsuccessful Self-Treatment of the Case of Writer's Block." It's one of those humor in science. And it was published with literally nothing, which makes a lot of sense. After all, the writer had an untreated case of writer's block. But why it's a case of humor, it just buttresses the fact that writing is hard, it's not intuitive. And so today's session will cover how we can overcome that challenge. So this is the framework we're going to use. We're going to use a tiered approach to developing the topic. I'll talk about the FBR approach, which helps you to write fast. And then we'll talk about the 3-item approach, and then end with some notes on convention and grammar. And so let's talk about the FBR. FBR stands for fast, bad, and wrong. The philosophy here is that you should not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. You should know when good is good enough. So FBR, like I said, stands for fast, bad, and wrong. And to show you how wrong it is, even the wrong is spelled wrongly. And so the point is that with the FBR approach, when you're writing, please don't go and start correcting typos and correcting errors in the same breath. And this is how you know somebody who is a newbie in writing. They're going to write one sentence and then they're going to change the font a million times, admire it, and then correct some typos. No. Why are you doing that? That is completely unnecessary. Just write and write. So I'm going to show you practically how how you can do that later on when we switch over to the Chisquares platform. But the mantra should be that we want to adopt FBR, whether we're writing a protocol or a manuscript or a dissertation or anything we're writing. It doesn't even matter. Whether it's just technical documentation, we should live and die by the FBR. Even scripture tells us there's a time for everything. There's a time to write and a time to edit. You know you're doing it wrong when you're trying to write and edit at the same time. That is not you're not optimizing efficiency that way. So just write. When you're done with writing, then you can come and edit later on. So let's talk about writing smart now. We all know the anatomy of a manuscript: introduction, methods, results, conclusion, and discussion. But for us to put it into context, we can think of each section as personified. We can think of something that represents each of those sections. Introduction, for example, think of it as a salesman. That's what you are. So it means that as you journey across your manuscript from beginning to end, you are supposed to assume different roles in the different sections. So in the introduction, you are a salesman, nothing else, just a salesman. In the methods, you're a scientist. In the results, you're a robot. In the discussion, you're a philosopher. And in the conclusion, you are a very wise man, a sage. We're going to talk about how those things pan out. And we're going to establish this against the framework of what I created called the 3-items approach. The 3-items approach simply says that in each of those sections, you're going to have only 3 items, right? So in introduction, we're going to have only 3 paragraphs. In the methods, we're only going to have 3 subheadings. In the discussion, we're going to have 3 paragraphs. In the conclusion, we'll have 3 sentences. We're going to have 3 tables, and we're going to have 30 references, which is, scores of 3, where score is 10. So that's the 3-item approach. And of course, this is not written in stone. This is not to say that, oh, you must follow this approach. But the idea is to give people who are new to writing a framework. It's easier to do something when you have a framework, like when kids are being taught to write ABC, they are given a framework where they can draw A inside that framework. I don't know what they call the stuffs, but that provides that structure for them to mimic it. So this 3-item approach is meant to provide that framework to help new writers to write. So let's talk about the introduction. So remember, in the introduction, you are a salesman. You are selling something, right? Your job here is to sell your paper. The person you're trying to sell your paper, first and foremost, is the editor. but then your readers are also the secondary audience you're selling your paper. So you're selling something, and the question is, why should I buy what you're selling, right? So your job is to convince me that I really need to buy this thing you're selling. So going with the 3 items approach, remember we're going to have 3 paragraphs in the introduction. Paragraph 1 will address the question, why is this topic important? So here you're going to quantify in terms of disease, death, economic costs, vulnerable populations, and so on. In the second paragraph, you're going to tell us, what do we know about this issue? And here, just we're not, this is not a literature review. This is where people get it wrong. They try to tell us every single thing about that topic in the world. No, no, no. We don't want that. Give us just very, very high, the salient points. All right, keep it short and sweet. And then the third paragraph, tell us, what don't we know? So why is this important? What do we know and what don't we know? Or what's the gap? And so you can define the gap with interrogative pronouns: what, where, when, who, and how. So what means, for example, we have data for that product, but not this product. Where means we have data for there, but not here. When, we have data for then, but not now. Who, we have data for that population, but not this population. And how, we have done it that way, but not this way. Well, not this better way. It's not just that we don't want to do the worst way, right? It has to be a better way. And so when you're using the interrogative pronouns, it's not enough for you to tell us that we have data for then, but not now. You must also tell us, why is it plausible to expect that things will have changed between then and now? So it shouldn't be as though, oh, I just got a new data point, so I have to write a new paper. So every single time you get a new data point, I have to write a new paper. No, that's not what we want. You've established that the last paper was 10 years ago. All right, good. What has changed between 10 years and now? So it's a 2-part argument. We have data for then, and we expect that things will have changed. Maybe COVID-19 came and the whole world went crazy. Maybe individual risk factors have changed. Maybe access to care has changed. Maybe economic status has changed. Something has changed, right? You have to tell us something that is plausible. Maybe we have more policies. Maybe there are new laws. Maybe the policy landscape changed. But something has to theoretically change for us to believe that we need this new paper to fill the gap between then and now. So the same thing applies to the other interrogative pronouns. When you're using any of them, you got to establish why we expect the difference to exist between that product and this product, that population and this population, and so on and so forth. So basic do's and don'ts, again, you have to tell a story, right? Each paragraph should flow into the next. Your writing shouldn't be very choppy, as if it's written by a machine, right? It should flow coherently. And that's where storytelling comes in. Each paragraph should flow effortlessly into the other one, and each sentence as well. When you're writing, you want to start with a thesis, right? So each paragraph, this is best practice on how to structure paragraphs. Each paragraph should start with a thesis statement. A thesis means this is the argument I'm making for this paragraph, right? And then the rest of the sentence in that paragraph will then provide evidence for your position. And then you close it nicely, So the last sentence of the paragraph should lay a framework or should clearly support what you had argued clearly at the beginning, right? So don't just write, like as though you were just writing for writing's sake, right? Writing should be a very creative exercise that is just beautiful and that allows you to connect dots together. And so for the introduction, you have to tell a story. You have to be explicit. Research is all about showmanship. It's not just about filling the gap in knowledge. You have to tell us what the gap is and then fill the gap. You have to keep it stimulating. Your opening sentence should be powerful, right? This is your first. Remember, you are a salesman. You're selling us something. So keep it stimulating. Don't just start your introduction with, I'm not saying you should be dramatic, but also what I'm saying is that don't start your introduction with just tired expressions, which everybody has said. You keep things that you keep repeating over and over and over. Oh, smoking is the leading cause of death. Oh, sure. Tell me something I've never heard, right? Keep it stimulating, keep it interesting. And less is more. Try not to exceed a page for your introduction, right? Again, remember, this is not a literature review. 1 page is enough. Most journals require 300 to 500 words for your introduction. And so keep it short and sweet. Don't turn into a systematic review. Don't put methods in the introduction. Don't cite stale papers. Research is dynamic, and so the state of knowledge should also be dynamic. Of course, an exception to this is biological relationships. Smoking and lung cancer, we still cite studies from Dole and some of the classic papers that are from decades ago, because, well, if smoking causes lung cancer, we expect that relationship should hold true then and now as well. And please don't use big words. There's a reason why we have small words in the dictionary, so that we use them. The hallmark of expertise is being able to take the most complicated things and convey them in a simple way that everyone can understand. The goal of writing is not to impress anyone, it's to communicate. So the moment you start using big words, and big words could be two types of big words. There's the big words, like just like big words in a dictionary, or just jargon, which are just the big words from your profession. Either big words tend to confuse, right? So we should all embrace simplicity, right? Again, there's a reason why we have small words, so that we can use them. So avoid jargon, avoid big words. Da Vinci said it most eloquently. Simplicity is the utmost sophistication. All right. So we're moving from a salesman now to a scientist in methods. That's what you are. Here you are going to put on your scientist hat, because this is where your peers are going to critique you for sound science or the absence of it. So ensure that your work is reproducible, right? That is a key part of the methodology. 2 words: validity and reproducibility. Reproducibility is not enough. People imagine that if my methods is reproducible, then that's okay. No, that's not all. That's a very, very low bar. Reproducible simply means that I do it and I get the same result as you did. But you could have done something wrong, and I just repeat. I repeat the same wrong methods, and I can get the same answer. So it's not enough that your work is reproducible. It should also be valid, right? And so, in the method section, you want to tell us what you did and why. So it's not enough for you to just say, I did X, Y, and Z, especially when you do use methodologies that are not very mainstream. Then tell us why you did it. If you did a log transformation, it's not enough for you to say, oh, we just did a log transformation and just move on. Like, why? Or especially if you now even use more unusual transformations. You did a cubic transformation. Oh, you definitely have to tell us why you did it and why you didn't explore other methodologies for transformation. So when you use particularly methods that are not mainstream, try to explain why you chose them. And so let's go back to the 3-item approach. Remember, we said each section has 3 parts. The methods will have 3 parts. The first part is where you tell us your data source or your study population, right? And again, we're going to use the interrogative pronouns here. What, where, when, who, how, and how many. So the what, the name of the study, the year. It is shocking how many papers you're going to read that the authors just chose not to tell the year in which the data were collected. I'm like, how? How does that happen? You just describe the study and no mention of year, no mention of response rates, or no mention of sample size. Those are unforgivable sins. So please tell us all of those things, right? What, where, when, how, who, and how many. You don't have to be fancy. Just list these things out and just supply the information. That's all we ask. Don't try to be a poet, or just supply the correct information. So that's part 1, the data source and the study population. Part 2 is the variables that you analyzed. Again, you can describe it in however way you want. There's no rule of thumb. You can describe it as primary and secondary outcomes, or exposure, and however it makes sense to you. And then the third part is the analysis, statistical analysis. In general, try and follow the 1, 2, 3 approach. Start with univariate analysis, follow with bivariate analysis, follow with multivariable analysis. So 1 variable, 2 variable, 3 variables. And in each of those cases, tell us what you did. So if it's 1 variable, what was the variable? How did you summarize it? Was it with percentages or with means? Did you weight the data or were they unweighted? Don't assume or don't allow people to assume what was done. Say data were unweighted so that we know fully that was what happened. If they were weighted, don't just assume that we will know that since you used DHS that you weighted the data. Well, we don't know what you did, so you have to tell us. If it's for bivariate analysis, what kind of tests do you use? It's not enough to say we did statistical testing to see the relationship between smoking and lung cancer. What kind of test do you use? Was it one-tailed or two-tailed? And then for multivariable analysis, what model did you select? Why did you select the variables in the model? And which software did you use for the analysis? Some do's and don'ts. Use active language. Don't be like a politician. Politicians always say, "Oh, a crime was committed." You don't want to say, "I committed a crime." So please use active language. We analyzed this. We assume. Don't say it was assumed that. It was assumed by who? Like, who made the assumption? We assumed that X, Y, and Z, and to address this or to test our assumptions, we did X, Y, and Z. Active language is good. It keeps it stimulating. You're writing for humans, so make it humanly readable. Be consistent. One of the hallmarks of new writers is that they think that they want to be flavorful. They want to keep it interesting, right? So here they will say, current cigarette smoking. Then the next place they will call it current use of cigarettes, or for the same term, they may have like 10 different terminologies to describe the same thing. Please use the same consistent term throughout your paper, right? It makes it easier for readers to follow through consistently. You want to make sure that each aim has an approach. So in the introduction, you told us that these were the aims. This study has 2 aims. Well, when I come to the methods, I should see a method for each aim. So don't tell us methods that don't have an accompanying, or don't tell us aims that don't have an accompanying methodology. And always consider using a flow diagram, especially when you have a lot of information. You can put some of the secondary information into a table or into a flow diagram. Please don't overwhelm your readers. You don't have to mention every single detail of what you did. Right, that gets exhausting really fast. So prioritize. Like I said, if there are a lot of other things you did, just put them in the table and refer to them in the supplements. If everything is important, then nothing is important. Don't provide results in the methodology. However, the sample size and the response rates belong in the method, so please provide them there. Don't do excessive subgroup analysis, and please, this is 2025. Let us not catch you doing stepwise modeling. All right. The results. Remember, in the results section, it's supposed to be a robot, right? A robot, imagine how a robot will write it. A robot will not say, "Oh, we were surprised, we were shocked." It's like, "Oh, since when do you start having feelings?" Right? A robot will be precise. So that's what it's supposed to be in this section. The 2 parts of the manuscript are supposed to mirror each other. The introduction and the discussion are supposed to be mirror images of each other. So the introduction says, this is why this topic is important, and this is what we don't know, right? This is what the introduction says. The discussion in reverse then says, oh, now we know this thing that we did not know, and this is why it's important, right? Those 2 parts of the paper mirror each other. The same way the methods and results should mirror each other. The methods say, oh, here and here, this and this and this is what we did. And then the results say, when we did this, this and this, here is what we found. So it's a problem when you say we did this, we did this, we did this, and then in the results, you are completely quiet about what the results are from what you just did. Then we say the manuscript is missing huge gaps. There are huge gaps in it because the results and the methods don't mirror each other. All right, so with the 3 items approach, the results should have 3 parts. The first part is, again, 1, 2, 3 approach. Remember, we said the methods should be written in 1, 2, 3 approach. 1 variable, 2 variable, 3 variables. Univariate, bivariate, multivariable. That is the exact same order in which you want to write your results. Univariable, univariate, bivariate, multivariable, right? So background characteristics, that's univariate. 50% of the population was male, and 20% were females, and whatever. Those are all univariate analysis. And then you jump to bivariate, and then you jump to multivariable. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 for methods, 1, 2, 3 for results. Do's and don'ts. You want to use the 1, 2, 3 rule for decimal places. In general, we express percentages to 1 decimal place, odds ratios to 2 decimal places, and p-values to 3 decimal places. Those are not rules set in stone. They're just conventions. You can, depending on what the journal requires, obviously you can break those rules. But in general, you want to follow the 30 precision rule. The 30 precision rule says that we want to keep and display estimates only if they have at least 30 individuals in them, or if they have a relative standard error of less than 30%. So if you have 2 people in a cell, obviously you don't want to present that result, because the result will either always be 0, 50%, or 100. That's obviously not valid. The results should follow the same order as methods: 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, univariate, bivariate, multivariable, univariate, bivariate, multivariable. So 1, 2, 3 approach. And keep only the main results in the main text. There are 4 places results can appear in the manuscript. You can display results as tables, as figures, as supplementary material, or in the main text. Please don't duplicate materials. This is, again, how new writers write. They somehow imagine that everything must appear in the main text, right? So they will now duplicate what they just showed in the table. They just repeat that exact table in the main text. It's like, okay, we can read, right? We can see the tables, we can read them. You don't have to repeat what you just presented in the tables in the main text. So just summarize the highlights of what's in the tables, and not everything, right? There's a reason why they're in different parts, because they're supposed to complement each other, not necessarily repeat each other. So keep only the key findings in the main text. Every other thing can appear in the tables, or in figures, or in the supplemental section if they are really not directly tied to the manuscript. Don't mind your language. Avoid terms like almost significant, trending towards significance. Significance is like pregnancy. You're either pregnant or not pregnant. There's no such thing as, oh, she's almost pregnant. No. So don't say almost significant. Don't use adjectives. Remember, you're supposed to be a robot in the manuscript section. So adjectives, things like many people were smokers. Like, okay, what exactly do you mean by many? Is it 5, 10? What is meant to me might not be meant to you. So that's the problem with adjectives, right? They're very subjective. And so that's why we want to avoid them religiously. You can, however, use adjectives and all of those things in the discussion. Just to be clear, we're just saying that in this result section where you're supposed to be a robot, please don't use them. Try to avoid them very religiously. If you're analyzing weighted data, don't avoid using words like, don't say participants. Oh, because in analysis of complex survey data, you might have, let's say, 50,000 participants. But the analysis are supposed to be representative of the whole country. Once you weight data, you have completely changed the audience. It's no longer the participants that you're interested in now. Weighting changes the game, right? It's now the overall population of the target population. So once you weight data, don't say 50% of participants were smokers. No. If you are weighting data, for example, for the US, you will say 50% of US adults. It has stopped being participants the moment you weighted the data. So you want to keep that in mind. And not turn your study into a p-value only study where you're just showing only p-value, right? Showing the p-value only is like, somebody says, oh, I'm very thirsty. And then you hand them an empty cup, right? It's like, okay, where is the water inside the cup? Right. So don't just show p-values. Where p-values appear, you must have something appearing beside them, whether it's percentages or odds ratios or whatever, right? The effects must be displayed for the p-value to make sense. Don't just be showing p-values only. That is just it makes no sense. All right, discussion. Discussion, you're supposed to be, a philosopher. This is now where you can use your adjectives or your favorite words. This is now where you can be shocked. We're shocked to see All right. So all of the things that we said you could not do in the results, now you are a wise man. You can say whatever you want to say. Of course, within the context of your results. So whereas in the results you're supposed to be a robot, here you're supposed to be yourself and tell us, as the term implies, discuss. Tell us what your interpretation. This is where subjectivity is allowed, right? The idea here is that data cannot speak for itself. Somebody has to interpret the data and tell us what it means. So this is where your voice comes in. This is the first place your voice is coming in. In the introduction, you were saying, oh, this is what other people have done. In the results, you were saying, this is what the data is saying. Well, at some point, this is your paper, right? At some point, we have to hear what you are saying. So the discussion is not a place for you to say, oh, so and so et al. Said this, and so et al. Said that. So the question is, what do you have to say? So here is where you interpret the data and give it life, so that we can understand what it means. So again, in line with the 3-item approach, we're going to have 3 items. The first paragraph is the summary of the key findings and implications. If I have to read a paper and I don't have time, I don't read the methods, I don't read the results, I go straight to the discussion and I read the first paragraph. That first paragraph is important because it tells me what the summary findings were and what you think the importance of the whole findings are. So if I were to pick only one paragraph of a manuscript to read, it will be the first paragraph of discussion because it gives me a summary of the paper and what it means. Every other thing is then just repetition and okay. But that tells you how important this first paragraph is. The next paragraph is for you to explain unexpected results and to compare studies. So what do we mean by unexpected results? So first and foremost, please don't state the obvious. Don't explain things that are self-evident. It's like, all right, anyone can understand that. So you see, let's say smoking rates higher or mortality rates higher among smokers than non-smokers. Like that's self-evident. Like you don't have to explain that, right? What you really want to focus on explaining is things that are unexpected, that are surprising. So for example, you expect that smoking should have a negative effect on certain outcomes, health outcomes. But shockingly enough, it has protective effects in some areas, right? Like how? That is unexpected. You should definitely explain that. So for example, it could be that maybe smoking causes, increased layer of, some deposits and whatever the explanation is in your field, right? You have to tell us why you think this is the case. Or sometimes you see the association is there, but it's bigger than you expected, or it's smaller than you expected. Or you see effect modification. Effect modification is where we observe the effect is different in one group versus in another group, right? So let's say you're looking at a relationship between smoking and lung cancer, and you see like 4 times the relationship in females than in males. Like, why? Is there a biological explanation for this? Is there there's some interaction with some certain hormones and this, carcinogen or whatever the case might be? When you see effect modification, definitely you want to explain it because that's definitely interesting. Or you see that trends were going up, and now they're coming down. Or we were making progress in reducing the prevalence of something, and suddenly the trends are going up, right? Or you see a contradiction between your primary outcome and secondary outcome. The secondary outcomes are supposed to provide coherence, in relation to the primary outcome. You can only have one primary outcome in the study. You can't have many primary outcomes. It can only be one. Just like you can only have one captain in a ship, right? So you have one primary outcome which drives the signal and sets the stage. It commands the whole study. And then you have secondary outcomes which are supposed to support that primary outcome. Now, suddenly, instead of seeing the results from the secondary outcomes going in the direction of the primary outcome, you see completely different directions. Like, okay, this is not usual. This is not normal. What could explain this, right? So when you see such inconsistent findings, definitely that's worth explaining carefully. And then the third paragraph, you can now talk about the discussion with limitations. Limitations could be limitations in design, in analysis, or in interpretation. So some basic do's and don'ts. Don't just repeat. Some people imagine that the discussion is just a summary of the results. Like you're like, all right, dude, I just read the results. Why are you repeating the results over and over? Right? The goal is not just to repeat or summarize. The goal is to synthesize, interpret, and apply. Right? So synthesis means that you are now looking at the results and seeing beyond the obvious, right? That is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to see beyond the obvious. Okay, this is what the results say. So what does that mean? That's what we mean by synthesize. So don't just restate the findings. Be very careful with your choice of words. Always show humility by expressing uncertainty. It's a very scientific thing for us to be uncertain, right? And this is how you know the hallmark of a true scientist, right? True scientists are always very uncertain. Like, well, there could always be alternative explanations, right? The naive individual is the one who has no uncertainty in their life, though they know for a certain that this is the cause. So try and avoid that. Use words that show humility and uncertainty, like might, could, may. You should definitely avoid using words like can or must, except if the only scenarios where you're allowed to use must is if that is supported by law, federal law. Federal law says you must do this. Don't be saying that federal agencies or the population must follow something. Like, really, who are you? Nobody has to do it. Nothing is that important. That you're not our king. So don't tell us that we must do something. So use words that show humility and uncertainty. Focus more on significant findings, because remember that the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. And please don't provide so many limitations that it begs the question of why then are you doing the study? You're like, there are 12 limitations to this study. Like, okay, geez, that's a reject. This study is overwhelmed by its limitations. Like that, so don't provide too many limitations. Keep it minimal. 4, 5 maximum is enough. Some don'ts. Please don't provide new results in the discussion. This is a very bad behavior some writers do, is they will now start introducing new results in the discussion and start telling you results not shown. I'm like, okay. As an editor, I never ever like this, and I will always reject it. Like, if the results are that important, then show them in the results. Don't come into the discussion and tell me that results not shown. No, that we're not going to accept that, right? So if they're important, display them in the results. Don't overstep your boundaries. Don't use causal language. Don't show too much certainty. Be humble. Don't be overly critical of past work. The people you are, somebody may have made a mistake. We are all humans. We make mistakes. The goal is not to shame people. Like, it's a very bad thing trying to shame anyone, right? It's simply not professional, and it's life. I think there's much more to life than just academic work. So don't be overly critical of past work. And if all you know, there may be your reviewers, but that's not even a reason why you should not be overly critical. And it's not. I'm not saying it's bad to state that some work is not does not meet expectations or shows differences that are not reasonable. But the manner in which you do something shows whether or not you are a reasonable person or not. All right, conclusion. Conclusion is, again, 3 sentences. Here you want to summarize, interpret, and apply. And so don't just end your study on a flat note. All right, so we have come all this way to the end. So the question is, where next? Where does this study take us? What should we do? Now we are all looking at you who wrote the paper and looking at you and say, okay, so what should we do? This is where you are a sage, you are a wise man at this point, wise woman. You have to tell us what to do. And please don't tell us that more research is needed. It's like you are just kicking the ball to the next person. No. Based on what you have found, what should we do? That's very important. So again, 3 sentences of conclusion. First sentence, what did you find? Second sentence, what do they mean? That's the interpretation. And then what should we do? How can this be used? Application. So you can say that we need to improve surveillance, we need to increase enforcement and compliance, we need to pass this bill into law, we need to increase the reach and utilization of. You must just say something. Don't just end and say, oh, flat, and like, okay, what is supposed to come out from this paper, right? So the conclusion is a place for you to now tell us what these findings mean. The do's and don'ts. Again, keep it short, keep it data driven, don't speculate, keep it action oriented, keep it cohesive. Don't provide new results in the conclusion. Don't just restate the findings. Don't add references, please. The conclusion should not have references. The abstract should definitely not have references, please. And avoid in summary. That makes it sound like ChatGPT. In conclusion, like, okay, we already know this is the conclusion section. So don't state the obvious. All right, let's quickly look at the abstract and the title. Abstract and title are extremely important because in the vast majority of cases, those are the only parts of the manuscript that a reader will have contact with. They're going to read the title and then they say, okay, I think it's relevant. And then they're going to read the abstract. And that in the vast majority of cases, that's where it ends. These are the parts of the manuscript that you should write last, right? And these are the parts of the manuscript you must pay the closest attention to. Most times we will have gone through the manuscript. At this point, we're tired. And we just write something, like anything, and say, all right, we're just going to go ahead. No. This is where you should really focus attention. You want to optimize it for findability, that people should find it. And so you want to pay attention to it. Keep it short. Title, 15, 20 words. Abstracts in general, unless specified otherwise, 250 words. Comply with journal instructions. Make sure you have elements of person, place, and time. In epidemiology or in research in general, we live and die by person, place, and time. That's the first thing you're taught in epidemiology class, right? Epi 101, person, place, and time. So it's shocking when we see your abstract and it doesn't have elements of person, place, and time. Oh, where was this study conducted? We don't know. What year was it conducted? We don't know. That's horrible. So please ensure you have elements of person, place, and time well reflected, and write them last. Forget about the title at the beginning, just write. You come to the title and the abstract last. No results shown only in abstract. If we have a result in the abstract, it must be in the results section. Don't summarize the paper in the title. Don't insert references in the abstract. And please, don't try to be cute. You see a manner of cute and goofy titles. People trying to create rhymes. Like, really? or it's, please don't do that. It's just it dilutes the the professionalism of your work, and it makes it like a joke, right? So slogans, rhymes, puns, or things of that nature are just tacky. Want to avoid that. So right. Never submit the first draft. No matter how good it is, you want to make sure you revise carefully. Be clear, be cohesive, be coherent, be concise, and be convincing. It takes a lot of work to make something concise. Please, you should never write a manuscript unless there is clear justification for it. If your manuscript is getting to 4,000 words, oh, we have a problem on our hands, right? Try and keep your manuscript to 3,000 words if it's an original manuscript, because people are busy. Like, you have to understand that people have busy lives. No one has the time to read your very lengthy paper. And so if you also a supervisor for doctoral work, please don't tell them to write 6,000 worded manuscript. What is that? Like, teach them to be concise. It's easier. Anyone can make something long and long and long, right? It takes real craftsmanship to make things concise. So please, let's inculcate that in our training so that people develop the art of being concise. And be clear. Again, please use small words, right? You're not trying to impress anyone. You're trying to communicate. And like I always say, there's a reason why we have small words in the dictionary, so we can use them. And again, be convincing. This is right, like a philosopher. You're making an argument. Like, when someone reads your paper, they should be like, wow, that's a very deep argument, right? This is very well argued. You're making an argument, and it should come across as that. Don't just be repeating statements and just like as if some random thoughts were just slapped together. Try and make it convincing. So at the end of the day, manuscript writing is both a science and an art. So that means that you can only get better with practice over and over and over. And that's the art part of it. Of course, it's based on science too, because there are rules and principles and frameworks which we follow. All right. Now let's go over to the Chisquares platform and let's see how we can put all of these things together in developing our manuscripts. All right. So let me sign in to my account and all right. So I'm going to, when you're writing on the Chisquares platform, you can choose to start from collaborate, or you can choose to start from analysis. It doesn't matter where you start from. It's clear. Because the two parts are very, very well connected together. But I always prefer starting from analysis. That being said, but you can have your own preferences. All right, so I'm going to start a new project, and I'm going to call it what did I call the other ones? Day 3 of analysis workshop. And so description is this session will develop a manuscript using the principles discussed. All right. So let me expand this so that we can see clearly. So I'm going to upload the data set and let me use the NYTS, which is what we've been working with. So we have a consistent frame of reference for all of the 3 days. I didn't give you homework yesterday because no one did the other homework anyway. So, but I will assign a homework today so that you guys can practice with the platform. So depending on the size of the data set, there are lots of validations that go on during this phase. It's not just taking the data set and just displaying it. It goes through a lot of validations so that if there are issues, they're going to be detected and flagged and shown to you to correct. For example, if you have variable names that do not meet requirements, and the platform will not just say, oh, your variable names are bad. It will accept it, but it will then show to you and say, well, here are things that you need to fix for you to fix, and then we can proceed. All right, so again, when you import your data set, it's like we said, it's always a good idea to visualize and look at the summary statistics for the key variables you're interested in. I'm going to spare that part. I'm going to jump over that part because, well, we've preached that sermon long enough. So we're going to move over to our business of the day. Now, remember I said over the past 2 days that there are 2 houses here in the architecture of Chisquares, depending on where you are in the knowledge domain. If you're not sure of what you're doing, you should just live in this space, right? The analysis wizard. This is designed specifically for you, so that it provides guidance. You need guidance, so that way you don't make mistakes. If you know what you're doing exactly and you don't need that kind of hand holding, then you don't need this analysis wizard at all. You can just come over here, these other parts, and do whatever you want. But the analysis wizard is designed specifically to provide that hand holding. It assumes that you don't know anything you're doing, and so it provides that guidance step by step, and so that you can be on your way. There are some tools here. Let's just quickly review some of them. There's the research idea suggester. Here, this is if you have uploaded a data set and you're not really sure of what the research question is. So if you click this, it will take the data set and analyze it, and then to say, well, based on what we've seen in the titles, it doesn't know the context, right? It doesn't know the context of what the variable names are, except if you have provided comments. And this is why you have comments and notes in this part here. So if you have very little suggestions, for example, let's go back here. If you don't have a lot of notes and tags, then it might not have that context and you might have that kind of error so one way to address that is to provide notes so that it has context. So if I want, for example, for the system to have context, I will then provide the notes here. I can say, for example, this variable here is current poker smoking, right? And then that way it has that context. I can, so that when it's reviewing, because it doesn't look at the data sets because of privacy concerns, it just looks at the names of the variables. And so it's on that basis that it makes suggestions. So that is that about the research idea. So if you want to get good results, then you must take the time to provide notes on the variables that you care about. All right, let's move to the next one. The regression analysis checker. Okay, we talked about regression yesterday, but again, this is important if you have a variable, let's pick this variable, for example, and you're not sure whether what kind of analysis you're supposed to do on that variable. Then there's some questions that will guide you here. Like, okay, choose whether the variable was measured one time or multiple times. So in this case, it was cross-sectional. And once you provide the options and you run, then it will then provide the suggestion that, okay, these are the regression analysis that you might want to do. Now, however, you can ignore all of those ones. The most important tool here is the analysis suggester, right? This is the most important of all of them. So and this is why it says here, new to manuscript writing, start your journey from analysis suggester, because that is the one thing that you need to use. So you may spend all of your time and never touch any of those ones. Maybe the statistical test checker is important too, but this is by far the most important. When you select that analysis suggester, it's going to give you a set of input fields to select what your outcomes are. The way it is structured is that it follows a Husserl framework for research, where it assumes that we have a clear outcome and a clear exposure. We're trying to measure the relationship between the exposure and the outcome. Even if your research question does not align with that framework, you can still follow that framework, because then you are aiming for the stars, really, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So here it says select the single most important outcome for your analysis and specify its type. So here we'll need to select one outcome. Like I said, you can only have one main outcome. You can have 3 main outcomes in the study. No. The same way you can only have one captain of a ship, right? Any ship that has multiple captains is doomed. The same way you can only have one primary outcome in the study. So let's say that our primary outcome is, let's say, current smoking. Let me select the variable. Current smoking. Okay, this is the one that was not recorded yet. So we'll select the type of variable. Now, if you notice, in some instances, the platform will automatically select the type here. Here, this variable we've selected here, if you look at this icon, it is a discrete variable. It has values 1 and 2. Now, the platform has no way of knowing whether 1 and 2 refers to a count variable or whether it is a categorical variable, right? Or whatever type of variable. Even for a categorical variable, 1 and 2 would mean it is a nominal variable, or it could be ordinal. There's no way to know that automatically. And that is why for certain selections, you will have to select this field. And this is for your protection. So here, for example, let me just select another variable so we can see what I'm saying again. We select this, you see this field is blank, because the values of this variable are 1 and 2. So if you look at the preview of this, it's 1 and 2. Those are the values. So the platform has no way of knowing that this is an ordered variable or this is an unordered variable, or this is count data, or this is even continuous variable. It could be any of those, right? So we can't guess what it is, because once we start guessing, that's a slippery slope. And this is where the collaboration comes in. This is the collaboration between you and the platform to say, well, you have the context. You know what this is because you collected the data. So tell us what this is. So in this case, I know that this is an unordered categorical variable. So I can select that. And then my secondary outcomes here would be, for example, I'm interested in roll your own cigarettes. I'm also interested in, let's say, current pipe smoking and hookah. And I'll select the types of variables they are on other categorical variables in each case. And then the main predictor. So again, this is the main outcome. These are the secondary outcomes. You can only have one primary outcome, but you can have multiple secondary outcomes. The job of the secondary outcomes is to provide coherence, to show that, okay, well, because in research, what we really do in research is repetition, right? We find that something is the truth through repetition. If we did it once and then we did it again and again, I will found about the same thing. Then we know that, okay, well, this makes sense. And that is exactly what we achieve with primary and secondary outcomes. The primary outcome leads the charge, and then the secondary outcomes come, and then we get the results from the primary outcome, and then we see the results we get from the secondary outcome, and we can see, is there coherence? Are the secondary outcomes telling the same story as the primary outcome? So that's why we require that you provide secondary outcomes. You don't have to provide a whole bunch of them. You can provide one or two or three, and that's fine, but it helps to add the validity of the findings through establishment of coherence and consistency. Now, choose the main predictor or the exposure variable. The predictor or exposure variable is what is the explanatory factor you're interested in. If I'm saying, what is the relationship between smoking and lung cancer? In this case, lung cancer is my outcome, my primary outcome, and smoking is my exposure variable or the primary predictor, right? Again, in the causal framework, you can only have one primary predictor, right? So even if your research is exploratory, where you're saying, oh, what factors are associated with lung cancer, and you don't have a primary or a main exposure, you can just pick the most important predictor and say, well, this is my primary exposure. So let's say that we want to select e-cigarette use as e-cigarette as our primary exposure. Again, this doesn't make sense. This is just for the purpose of demonstration. So I'm not giving a lot of thought to the variables I select. All right, so, and here again, this is an unordered categorical variable. And then the demographic variables of interest, like, okay, what are demographics of interest? And I can choose to say, well, I'm interested in race, I'm interested in sex, I'm interested in, let's add one more variable. So this is just designed for you to just pick, and the platform will then suggest that this is what you could do. Let me see if there's any other variable here that could, sex, race, I believe there is that age, maybe not. Okay, age group. Good. All right, I'm going to stop there. So race, these are all unordered categorical. And again, ordered means this is ordinal variables. Unordered means a nominal variable. Unordered means there's no a variable. We try and provide description so that it's clear to you. So race is an unordered categorical variable because the labels do not, or the categories do not follow any ranked sequence. So that is that. Sex too is unordered, and age group is also unordered, right? So once we've selected this, we can then suggest analysis. So now the platform has suggested some analysis for us. It has given us suggestions for 4 tables. It says table 1 should be characteristics of a study population. Its justification is that the distribution of categorical variables will be summarized as percentages while any numeric variables, if present, will be summarized as means with standard deviations. And so what the platform is telling us that, well, based on the variables that you selected, how about you have table 1 as characteristics of study population, and there you're going to tell us the distribution of e-cigarette, of race, of sex, and of age group, right? And then I have my option is to run the analysis. Then it says for table 2, I should look at overall and stratified prevalence estimates of the selected outcomes among the study population. That's what it suggests that I could have in table 2. And so here you can see its justification. It says estimating prevalence in the overall population and among subgroups can help assess disparities. The following variables with over 2 categories will need to be dichotomized as 0 or 1, where 0 is those with the outcome of interest and 1 is those with the outcome of interest. And so that's these are the suggestions that's provided for us. So e-cigarettes and race and sex and age will all be part of our stratification variables, whereas the outcomes of interest will be BDs, and these were the variables we selected as our primary and secondary outcomes. So it says, well, how about we assess this in a table as prevalence in of themselves. So that's the second table that's suggested for us. Now, in table 3, it tells us that, well, we can look at the multivariable analysis, looking at factors associated with BDs. This was our primary outcome. And so we can look at a binary logistic regression model that examines this relationship. The outcome in this model is BDs, and these are the predictors. E-cigarette, which was our primary predictor, and then race, sex, and age group will be also predictors in the model. And then lastly, it tells us that we can have table 4, which will be a multivariable probability regression model assessing for factors associated with CBDs, right? And the justification is that this is sensitivity analysis. It says in this sensitivity analysis, we can dichotomize the variable as 0 and 1 and use probability regression to analyze it. While binary logistic regression models the log odds of the outcome variable as a linear function of the predictors, probability regression estimates probabilities of an outcome occurring within levels of the predictors. So it says you can simply proceed to analysis, and the platform will automatically allow you to recode on the fly and continue analysis seamlessly. All right, so these are the suggestions that the platform has suggested. So again, remember, in this context, I am somebody who has no idea what I'm doing, right? But if you want, you can say, well, I don't want to run a probability. The platform also suggests alternative models for you and say, all right, if you don't want those, here are alternatives. Now, if you're fine with the suggestions, all you need to do literally now is just click on the button run, right? These 4 papers that have been suggested make up your entire manuscript. And remember that when you click on run, the platform will run analysis and write out the results for you so that you can push to your manuscript, right? To your manuscript. So let's say we click on run this analysis. The platform would then, these are the variables that we had. E-cigarette, race, and age group, and then we can click on estimates and then it will run. The same thing with the other ones. If we clicked on, for example, this one too, and we click on runs analysis, the platform does the exact same thing. It would load the variable, load the outcome of interest. In this case, it has seen that the variable, which is the outcome here, is not binary. So it has thrown a flag here. It says, well, you can't actually run this analysis right now because the variable is not coded as 0 and 1. But you don't have to, no need to worry. You can just click on recode and the platform will allow you to recode on the fly and move on. So here it says, just drop the value that is 0 in this box and drop the value that is 1 in this box. So I can say, all right, 2 and the other one will be here. And I can then give it a name. Let's say I can say, replace the old name and proceed. So now that flag has been removed because now the variable is in the proper state to be analyzed. So you want to make sure that you are fine with the reference groups. Again, the platform would select the reference groups for you automatically, but you can obviously change them as the need might be. I can say, all right, I want this to be the reference group. I want for race, I want, for example, whites to be the reference group. I want and in general, before you use the analysis suggester, you want to make sure that you have recoded your variables. You have assigned clear labels, right? Never ever jump to analysis without having first taken the time to do data management. Because here this is quite confusing. You can see how confusing it might be to you. Because here, for example, you have this group. What does one mean? What does two mean? It's not clear at all because you confuse yourself and you confuse your readers. So again, very important, don't just jump into analysis and start analyzing data without first of all doing the heavy lifting that is required, which is data management. Data management is the most important task there is to data analysis. This is easy. The analysis is easy. You can just click and it estimates and runs, right? This is no complicated at all. But we end up coming up with results that are not very clear to us in terms of what they mean. Because here, for example, you're saying age group 1 versus 2, but what is 1? What is 2, right? So there's no problem. The analysis themselves is not a problem. It's how clear is it to a reader that what you're talking about. So we should never ever do this. We should never come to analysis and just upload data set and then say, oh, now we're going to create regression analysis, or no. We don't want to do that. That's bad practice. So we're going to take a step back and redo it again properly so that our results, that when we push them to the result today, to our manuscript makes sense, right? But here I just wanted to demonstrate how you can use the analysis suggester. So in this case, this person who has never written a manuscript in their life, all they need to do is just load the variables, select them, and just hit run this analysis. The platform will then take the instructions, write out all the results, and all they need to do is push to manuscript, right? So please don't do this. This is bad practice. Always take home messages that you should always carefully manage your data first, which includes recording of the variables and all of that. But for the sake of time, right, we'll just go ahead with what we have. But I expect that you will do better than what we've done. Again, because the whole point of research is to communicate. Here we have not communicated at all. We say race M 4 versus 1. What does 4 mean? We don't know. Why don't we know? Well, because we did not record carefully. So I cannot emphasize enough that we want to make sure that we do the right things at the right time. So, but let's just imagine that we're fine with this, that this was all fine, and we want to push to the results. So let's go over there. Let's see how the collaborate section provides you with tools to be able to write a manuscript effectively. Calvin 123, I see your hand. If it's an urgent question, please you can ask. Maybe so that you don't forget it. Calvin, are you still here?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
All right.
My question, when you say recoding, do you mean that we should say 1 is female or 2 is male? That's what you mean by recoding?
Yeah, record could mean that. It could mean like assigning, labels so that it's clear what we're talking about. Okay. In this case, I may want to collapse, I may want to collapse the certain groups. You can see how wide the confidence interval of this group is. That may be because the group has small sample sizes, right? If the sample size of a group is small, you might have very wide confidence intervals because the estimate is not precise, right? So those are things you want to pay attention to first and foremost. So you import your data, spend time, clean the data, making sure that everything is clear, and then and only then can you proceed to analysis. The reason why I did not go through all that steps is because that was what we did on day 1, I believe, right? Okay. So I didn't want to just take up time. I just wanted to focus on let's go to collaborate and let's see how it works so that when you are writing, you can use it. So So that for that reason, we skip that step. But my point is that when you're doing your own work, please don't skip steps. That's the moral of the
Okay.
story.
Thank you so much. I appreciate.
Oh, sure, yeah. So let's push the results to the manuscript. We can create a new manuscript. When you're pushing results manuscript, you don't have to push everything that comes with the manuscript, right? The items here comes with the tables, the text, the figures, and everything, right? Well, nobody's forcing you to take everything to your manuscript. You can choose to say, oh, I only want the figure, or I only want the text. That's up to you, right? But in this case, I'm just going to push everything. So we're going to create a new manuscript, and let's call this, let's say, prevalence. I don't remember what we use this today, of current BD smoking. US middle and high school students. All right, that's our title. The aim, you can type the aim yourself, or you can use Ask AI to generate the aim for you. This is our use of AI is in things that are helpful but not critical. So the AI is not used any part of manuscript of data analysis, but in areas like this where it will help, like sure, why not? So you can choose to ask AI to generate an aim or two for your study, and wherever AI is used, you have the option to edit what it has generated for you, so that it aligns with what you want. All right, so let's see. And I see some hands up. We're going to take questions, when we just finish this. Let me just finish the demonstration of how this all ties together. All right, so we've selected two aims. You can select as many as you want, and you can edit this as you need to, right? So now we can start writing. So this is a manuscript we generated, we created. It has been automatically selected, and now we can push the result and everything to that. So this has been pushed. Now, if we wanted, we don't have to go to the manuscript right away, right? We can say, well, you have two options here now. Option one is to leave analysis now and go to collaborate, go and see the document. Option two is to say, no, I want to just finish all my analysis and then go at once. Either is fine. If you choose to view the document, this tray goes with you so that you can always do, let me close this. Should you choose to just push and go with the manuscript, this tray always goes with you wherever you go, so that even in the document, you can still run your analysis there. I mean, what's the point of having an ecosystem that doesn't talk to each other, right? So all the parts of the platform communicate with each other, very, very well. So, but if you have run an analysis, so this was the one we ran. If you notice, it no longer says run. It just says view history, because that's the only thing we can see. Unlike this one that we have not yet run, where you can see run this analysis, right? The other one has already been run, so that's why it shows us just view history. So if we wanted to run the next one, which is this one, again, we can click on run this analysis. The system immediately flags the problem. It says, well, the variables here are not in the right format. The variables need to be in 0 and 1. They are not. So we can click on recode for each one and recode appropriately. So 2 is 0, and this is 1, and proceed. Let's just replace the name. Now we have this 2. Again, all of this could be avoided if you have taken the time at the beginning to recode. But even if you make a mistake and don't do that, the system will still allow you to correct your mistakes on the fly, so that you don't miss your flow process or your thought process. All right, so let's record this one again. 2 is no, and 1 is yes. And we're going to replace the original variable. And then the third one, 2. 2 is no. And please, if you find this if you find those sound effects annoying, you can put them off. You can come to color effects. You can say, I don't want color effects. I want everything to be boring. And I definitely don't want sound effects. Then I'm like, life is already hard. I want some color around me, right? So I personally always put them on, but we're all different. Um, so so we've recorded that, and then we can again replace the original variable name. All right, so now we're all set to run this analysis. So you have preferences. So please always look at the preferences carefully. The preferences indicate, how many decimal places do you want? Do you want to suppress estimates that are unreliable? How do you want the results to be presented? Obviously, the preferences are specific to the kind of analysis you're doing. It's context aware. And so, and in this case, I don't want to change anything. So I may just click on, the estimate. So the platform then runs the analysis within the groups specified. So it's finished. These are the estimates that have been generated. I can choose to, again, when the results are generated, you want to make sure you look at the results and text. And again, I can choose to push the results to the manuscript we're working on, which is already there. I'll push. Again, do I want to leave now and go and see the result, or do I want to stay in analysis and finish the rest? You can, either is fine. You're not going to lose your place either way, right? The analysis tree will always go with you wherever you're going, so that even if you are not in analysis, you cannot run analysis anywhere on the platform, because the tray will keep following you wherever you're going until you close it off, until you dismiss it. So for now, I just want to close and then run the so again, this is now executed, so that's why it shows as view. Then I want to run the characteristics of study population. Remember, we said analysis should go in 1, 2, 3 framework. 1 variable, 2 variable, 3 variables. Univariate, multivariate, univariate, bivariate, multivariable. If you notice, we did not follow that pattern in the way we pushed our results. We first of all did the multivariable first, and then we did the descriptive bivariate, and now we're doing table 1, which will appear first. It doesn't matter the order in which you do it. The platform will automatically reorganize the contents the way it is supposed to be organized. It knows that it has context to know that, well, this is definitely results from univariate analysis, right? So regardless of where you push it, of when you push it, the platform, the content will crawl through the manuscript to the right place where they're supposed to be and situate themselves there. So you don't have to do it manually. But again, let's run this analysis. Again, to confirm the variable type. These are all on other categorical variables. And we can then click on estimates. So again, this is why we want to make sure that you recode your variables properly, because right now, 5, 6, 7 are meaningless. It is again, I cannot emphasize enough that please don't just import the data set and just analyze it. You have to do your due diligence by making sure that it's meaningful, so that you don't end up confusing even yourself in the process. So again, we can now push the results to our same manuscript. All right, this time let's go and see what we've been working on. So you can see how the analysis tree has followed us here, right? The analysis suggests that we can always resume from here and do our analysis, continue our analysis from here. So it's not as if you're working in Stata and working in Microsoft Word where they cannot talk to each other, right? On the platform, they're all part of an ecosystem. So they absolutely talk to each other. And that's why you can push content from one analysis to the document and also do analysis within the document itself, because they're all part of one single ecosystem. All right. Now, if you close this dismisses the tray. right? So you want to make sure that if you are really fine with things, with analysis, and the tray can move. You can just grab a tray. If it's in your way, you can just grab it and drop it somewhere. But if you really are done with the stuff, you can clear the tray, and that dismisses everything. Now, when you push contents, so you see here that let's look at what we've pushed. So I've made my screen bigger, so I'm going to take it back to the default position so I can see clearly. So these are the things we've pushed so far. We've pushed tables, we've pushed figures, they've cited themselves accordingly. This is the result. You can see things are in block here because each item we pushed has arrived as a block. And that's fine. That's why we tell you here that under construction, like, please pardon our appearance as we build your paper, right? When you're done, platform will take care of everything. But for now, we're worried. Again, remember we said there's a time to build and a time to make things pretty, right? Whether it is automation or you're writing things manually, don't worry about things looking messy. The time will come to make them fine or pretty. For now, you just want to worry about content and making sure that every content you need is there. Once you are done with everything, so make sure that you're done with everything before you click on finalize. So let me first of all remove some of this noise. Let's resolve the variable names. So this makes the variable names pop up so that we can see them clearly. And then let's resolve tables and figures. So this makes them, pop up so that we can also see them clearly. Now, when you're done with everything, when you click on finalize, that is when you're going to supply the variable name, because this is not very meaningful, right? A reader will not know what E6 or race M or sex means because they don't have context for them. So when you're done, you type the meanings of those things here. You can say, for example, this is current BD smoking, and you can copy this text and paste it, like whatever they mean, you describe them accordingly, current, and then you'll submit, and the platform will then crawl through the document and replace every instance of that in context. In context, because in some instances, it may be that it's best to frame it as current cigarette smoking. But in other contexts, maybe an alternate rendition might be needed so that it flows more coherently. So the platform does all of that. So you're not the one who has, so this is not a simple find and replace. That's the point I'm trying to make. It replaces the text in context. But for now, let's go through what we just pushed to make sure that, we understand it. This was the push we made for the population characteristics, right? So it says, so remember we pushed it last, right? But it has crawled up to the top of the document. The following demographics with the largest segment of the population by age group, right? So that all of these are the results. But before we come down here, let's look at this part here, the method. So in the method section, the platform, for each result that has been pushed, there is a corresponding method. Remember we said the methods and the results must be mirror images of each other. So for whatever you have in the results, there must be something in the methods that tell us how you generated it, right? And that is true whether you're writing it manually or whether you're writing with with the software like Chisquares. Of course, with Chisquares, it does everything automatically by itself. You don't have to tell it. It knows already what it has to do. But here you see the results here. The following demographics with largest segment. Well, this is the corresponding methodology. For every result, there is a methodology. So this is the methodologies for that. This, and this. The methodology here, the outcome variable in this adjusted analysis was CBD's examination of factors associated with this outcome variable was performed with a binary logistic regression model that evaluated this, and this as explanatory variables. This is the methodology that explains this part of this result. So again, I'm just trying to highlight that marriage between the methods and the results. For every method, there has to be a result. For every result, there has to be methods that generated it, right? So here it says, so when you push, obviously the platform is going to write out the results for you. Here it says, the table 1 and 2 captures the adjusted odds ratios for the outcome as analyzed in a binary logistic regression model with 4 explanatory variables. So the following factors were possibly associated with CBDs at the threshold specified. E-cigarette coded as 1 versus 2. Again, when you're writing, please always provide a reference group. Don't just say e-cigarette were associated with smoking. No, that makes no sense. You must provide the group that is being spoken of, and you must provide a reference group. So here is saying group 1 versus group 2. This is the standard you must follow, right? And then it provides the odds ratios with the 95% confidence intervals. Race M, again, race M coded as 6 versus 1. We have the odds ratios and we have the confidence intervals. And you have this code. Now, you see why it's very important for you to label your variables very carefully. Now, we don't know what 3 is or what 2 is. So, yeah, you have to clean your data and assign labels carefully so that you don't confuse your readers. Because right now, our results don't have context. And that's all thanks to because we jumped that process. Then the remaining findings depicted in the table show no statistical significance. If results are not significant, you see how the platform eloquently framed it. Don't describing results and then telling us, oh, but they were not significant. But you just spend our time describing results that were not significant, right? So here it focused. This is best practice. It just told us the results that were significant and said, well, the rest are not significant. So why are we beating, a dead horse? There's no point highlighting things that have no significance, right? And that's what the platform has done. So here, certain results are not significant. It kept quiet about them, right? Because they were not statistically significant at the specified threshold. The display of tables includes the variable, the comparison group, the odds ratios, and the p-value. Again, remember the 1, 2, 3 convention. Odds ratios in general are presented to 2 decimal places. So you can see it consistently provides the odds ratios to 2 decimal places. But in general, we provide prevalence estimates are provided to 1 decimal place, right? And that's something that we want to pay attention to. So you see that here, all of this and this is your responsibility, right? In the settings, the preferences, make sure that you specify them as such. So there's a default setting, and we're going to show you the defaults in a minute, but try and follow the 1, 2, 3 convention. And then this is the population characteristics here. The tables, when you push results to the Chi-Squares platform, the text itself rearranges based on the order of the content. But we leave the tables for you in the order in which you push them, right? That's a very important statement to recognize, right? In the text itself reorganizes itself, it crawls and reorganizes itself, but we have to provide you with, we can't rearrange everything. There has to be a way for you to know the order in which you push them. So the text itself is self-organizing, but just so you can remember the order in which you push them, in case you want to use it for any reason, we'll leave the tables in the order in which you push them. So if you remember, we pushed the logistic regression first, and then we pushed the prevalence table, and then we pushed the population characteristics last, right? So we retain the order of the tables in the order in which you push them, although the text itself self-organizes in a way that is coherent. Now, in the descriptive analysis, the platform automatically does certain things for you that you did not even ask for. So you look at in the prevalence, for example, it says prevalence in the study population was as follows by the outcome or endpoint. Hookah 2.92, roll your own cigarettes, this, and this. Then it goes on to tell you that the table 2 reports stratified prevalence estimates. It not only reports the subgroup estimates. So if you look at the subgroup estimates here, we are presenting the outcomes by these subgroups. So it doesn't only just report the estimates, it also tests them statistically, right? So here, for example, it says, you see chi-square statistics, right? It says prevalence for hookah by age was 6.91 among group 2 and 2.54 among group 1. It gives the chi-square statistics with 1 degree of freedom as 90.3 and reports the p-value. So you didn't ask it, when we did the prevalence, we didn't ask it to do anything like that, but it has tested the the association of interest and reported it for us, right? The question is like, well, is it accurate? Well, if you run that same statistical test in any other software, you're going to get the exact same thing. But the point is that it reports things in a way that it's not just filling empty pages with meaningless results. It focuses on things that are important statistically so that you can take the results in context, So so that's how the platform provides that context. So the methods and the results are extremely important and are aligned in such a way that, for every result presented, you have a method for it. Now, when it pushes content, it also looks at the results. So as it's pushing the content, it's looking at the results and saying, there seems to be there might be an issue here, right? So for example, here, it says that we looked at the prevalence of these outcomes among 13 subgroups, which means that you have 208 unique estimates across all population strata and outcomes. What is it saying? It's saying that, well, we are doing a lot of subgroup combinations here, right? That if you count all of these subgroups, you are going to have 208 unique estimates. And that's a lot of subgroup comparisons. That's what it's saying. So in essence, it's saying that the challenges with such a very nuanced exploration of subgroups is the risk for imprecise estimates. So you can have estimates that are very imprecise because we have, because they're very, very small, right? And then of course the likelihood of type 1 error as well. So it looks at the results that is being pushed and flags any limitations that might be associated with them so that you could be aware of them. And then here it's also saying that, well, so for each result it's pushing, it's looking at the methods that gave rise to it, it's looking at the results that were generated, and it's also looking at the limitations that came from that methodology. So here, for example, it pushed the results from the regression here. This was our regression model. And you can see that some subgroups don't have significant results, right? Especially those very small subgroups. So what it's saying here is that, well, that non-significance could be a type 2 error because it has noted a small sample size for those subgroups. And so it's saying that, well, the fact that it's non-significant doesn't mean that it's a valid finding. It could just be a type 2 error, right? Because the study was underpowered for that subgroup. So all of that is to just make sure that the results are taken in context, right? So now we have our methods, we have our results. Of course, they are still untidy because we have not yet cleaned the documents. When you clean the document, it's going to replace these names, and it's also going to take these sections and rearrange them into very, very eloquently written text, right? It won't be in these different blocks as we see them here. All the limitations will be written coherently under one section. All the results will be written, instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever blocks, they will all be written harmoniously in one single block, right? But again, don't worry about things being pretty at this point. You should just write. There's a time to write and there's a time to make pretty. The time to write is when you're pushing your results. The time to make pretty is when you want to now say, alrighty, I am done and I want to finalize and polish the documents. This is it. So for now, let's just worry about the writing. So now that we've written the other part of the manuscript, we have to then, indicate how we want to generate the introduction, the methods, and the conclusion and the references. So let's do that. So here in these sections, the platform allows you to either choose, the platform behaves depending on whether you want to use AI or you don't want to use AI. Nobody's forcing anyone to use AI, and I know that's a very touchy topic, but on the platform, you can absolutely choose not to use AI. In fact, you can come over here in other settings and say AI controls and say, well, put all AI off, right? That's completely, I think the use of AI is a deeply personal decision. And that's why I'm always, when people ask whether should we use AI, I'm like, I don't know. Like, that's up to you and your and your institutional practices, right? It's not something that I or anyone else can tell you. Don't use AI. You as a researcher just have to be familiar with what ethical practice looks like. So that means that if AI generated content, well, you want to make sure that you edit the content carefully, or the preference will even be human first, content. So let's see what that means. When it comes to any section of the manuscript, there are two ways you can write content. It can either be AI first or human first. AI first means that the AI will generate content and then you will polish. Human first means that I will generate the content first and AI will polish. There's no right or wrong. Either approach is fine. It's completely up to you, right? Now, if I want to use an AI first approach where AI will say, okay, AI, just generate the content and I will edit it. So in other words, I'll click this button, skip manual input and auto-generate with AI. So that means that the AI will take context. And that's why when you are starting your manuscript, we ask you to write the aims and the topic, right? So the topic is here. The aims were supplied when we were generating the document, if you remember. So what the platform does is that it gives those to the AI as context. And the AI can also read what's on the document, and then it will use that as its own context for generating your introduction. The hope is that you will then take that content and then edit it very carefully to suit your use case. So this is the AI first approach, where the AI will first do its thing, and then you would then, polish it up later. If you disable AI in the settings, obviously you won't have access to that, right? And so it's finished now. It has finished its thing here. We cannot stress enough that when you use AI, you should be aware that AI can make mistakes. So please, you should always keep that in mind. AI is AI, right? It's supposed to just help you, not to replace you. So no matter how fine the content looks like, it's your responsibility to make sure that you read it carefully, right? That's why we put this text here. We'll say, we recommend using this AI generated output as a starting point and editing it thoroughly to ensure it meets your needs. Any references included in this content is wrong. It's just AI hallucinating. So we should be aware of that. And so the only references that are valid are the ones you use from the citation manager here. If AI is telling you that, oh, this is, ignore it, delete, it's your job to delete it. We can't stress that enough, right? So this is just provided as a service to help you, with some preliminary content. Not that you're supposed to take it as any truth. So here we have the content has been generated. You can read it. You can then use it. So here it's saying this first paragraph. I would not have time to read through it, but overall, I think it's reasonable, right? It makes some sense. So you can choose to edit it inside this document first, and then push it, or you can push it to your document and edit it from there. I always prefer editing it here, so I know exactly what I'm doing. And then, in some instances, the way we've programmed is in such a way that where it is not clear, it should not just guess, but just allow you to insert your own text, right? So you might see things like insert your key finding. And that's just a way that instead of it just making up stuff, you can just say, all right, my knowledge here is limited. So you are the author, so you should provide information. It might provide text that makes no sense, like, oh, AI loves things like in conclusion, right? So again, read it very carefully. It's your job. It's your responsibility to read it carefully. It is not expected in any way or shape or form that you just take this text as it is and then just use it and submit to a journal, right? So this is the first approach to generating content on the Chisquares platform. I personally don't like this approach, but I mean, people are different, and so we provide you with all of the tools that you need, and then based on your preferences, you can then tailor them to your own use case. My approach, so I'm going to clear this content away. My preference is with the human first approach, which says, well, I will tell AI what it is important to me, and then it can then take that content and create a coherent text. So here, for this part here, we have organized this content into, based on the 3-item approach we talked about: why important, what is known, and what is the gap. The way we've designed it in such a way that the idea is that it is easy for people to fill forms. Everybody can fill a form. It's just enter this information. It's easy. It's much easier to do that than to say, well, write an essay on, political ramifications of X, Y, and Z, right? Then it's like, where do I start? So this human first approach is designed in a way that, well, all you have to do is in each section, just provide information on 1 to 5 boxes. Any 1 to 5 that you want. So here I can say, well, my topic is on smoking of tobacco. Let me select some issues on health and mortality, and let me talk about lives lost, right? And so you check the box and you type something there. I can say tobacco smoking causes, 500,000 deaths. Again, you don't have to be fancy here. I'm writing it in as lay a manner as possible. So nobody is expecting you to now use some sophisticated language. You can just write something, anything. So tobacco smoking causes 500,000 deaths in the US every year. So this is on lives lost. You don't have to provide references, right? Later on, when you're done, you will provide references. So I'm done. So I've entered 1 item here. So again, remember the goal is to enter 1 to 5 items under each section. So under health and mortality, I can also say, let me talk about physical health. And I can say that tobacco use causes cancers and disease in almost every organ of the body. Again, nothing profound or earth-shattering. Just provide things that make sense in that box you've selected. Because the premise here is that it's easier for people to fill a form. And this is structured like a form where you fill. And as you fill, the ones that you've filled up appear up here. And then let me now move to, let me see if there's any other thing under health and mortality. All right, let's look at the economic impacts. So here I might want to say, under economic impacts, I might want to say economic costs from lost productivity. So I selected that and I'll say tobacco use causes, again, don't try to be fancy, just write the basics of certain facts that support that statement you've made. Causes let's say millions of hospitalizations, hospitalizations, which lead to lost days of work, school, and sorry, my vision is getting progressively worse. And productivity, I can't see anything. All right. So that's the economic cost there. I've selected 1 item. So far I have 1, 2, 3 items here. It doesn't have to be 5, but the more robust, the more detailed you want your manuscript to be, the more points you can provide, right? But if I'm fine with that, let me just select one more thing there: environmental and global health. We've structured this in such a way that regardless of the topic you are writing, you can always say something. There's always something for you to say in one of those areas. So let me say pollution and global warming. Tobacco butts litter our oceans and secondhand smoke causes air pollution. Again, you see, nothing fancy in what I'm writing. It's just like, okay, I'm just stating the problem. Remember, this is establishing the introduction. So this part, all of this part is just focused on why is this important. All right, I'm done with this. Let's move on to Q2, which is what's known on this topic. Now, the way we frame this part here is to say, pick any one framing, one framework, and speak on it. And we've tried to provide you with a range of things. So you can choose to say, well, I want to talk about the local issues, the regional issues, and the global issues, right? So I can now say the local issues. All right, in the United States, in the regional, in North America, and then globally, that's one way I can choose to use that, all right? Or I can choose to explore another option. Here I can say, let's talk about the problem, the process, and the progress. Maybe you can interpret this anyway. Don't say, oh, how am I supposed to interpret it? Well, interpret it any way you want, right? Pick any one that aligns with how best you see the problem and just provide the information. So the goal is not to make you paralyzed, it's just to inspire a process, a formula, which you can then use to fill in the required information. So, or you can say past, present, and future. What happened in the past? What's happened in the present? What's happening in the future? Okay, so I'm going to use this for example. The past, over the decades, smoking has been shown to be the leading cause of death implicated in heart disease, blah, 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 right? COPD and whatever, right? So that's in the past knowledge that we know that smoking is the leading cause of death. In fact, all the leading causes of death are, well, most of them are directly linked to smoking. Now, the present, what is in the present? Currently, you can, again, interpret that however you want, but interpret it. So currently I can say, okay, what are recent discoveries? Well, currently we know that smoke-free laws are one of the most powerful ways and effective ways of reducing tobacco use. I'm just making this stuff up, by the way. And then emerging directions. What's going on in the future? Well, the nicotine vaccine may have significant potential to reduce the abuse liability of tobacco products. Again, that's talking about future directions. The point is that you can pick anyone and just write about it. And you can also choose not to use this, right? You can choose to go to your introduction and just type from your memory and type anything you want. So no one is saying that you must use it, but for people who don't know what to write, this is just provided to just help them marshal their thoughts together in a way that is coherent. All right, so let's move to the next. Okay, I'm done with this. Then next, the gap. So there are many gaps here: gaps in knowledge, gaps in practice, gaps in policy. You don't have, you can pick one to five. It doesn't have to all of them. I would just pick one. So under gaps in knowledge, you have place-based gaps. That is where those interrogative pronouns we talked about. Like we have data for there, but not here, right? So I will say here that we have data for tobacco use in the US overall, but not among the rural population specifically, right? I can also say that, let me just pick one. Time-based gaps I can say data to date are from before the COVID-19 pandemic. Given the changes, let me just keep it simple. Given how life has changed, let AI figure out how to make it nice and fancy. Given how life has changed, smoking rates may have changed too. All right, so I'm done. So now I have provided why important, what's known, and again. So this is human first, right? So unlike that first approach that we had where AI just generated something for us, here we gave it something first. It may not be very eloquent, but it's something. And then we say, all right, take that and generate the introduction. So it's going to take that and then it's going to walk through generating the introduction for us. So now it has generated we still have this warning for you because it's still AI, but this is 10 times better than the approach where AI just generates something first, right? Because here we've given it a lot of guidance and it has guardrails. And in general, you can always expect that this is going to be more eloquent. It doesn't matter how the text we generated was, but again, please, AI can make mistakes, regardless of whatever the case might be. The one thing you can expect is that AI will make mistakes. So always be mindful of that. So when you're done, you can push to manuscript and it's going to push the manuscript accordingly. Now, when we write the other sections, we also want to be very careful. The method section allows you to specify, again, everything is structured like a form because we understand that it's easier for people to fill forms than to start writing things. So you select the study design. So you can say this was a cross-sectional study. What ages were surveyed. These were kids who were in early childhood and childhood. You can select the ones that apply. What was the study setting? This was a school-based survey. How were the participants selected? This was a stratified sampling. How were the data collected? These were online administered questionnaires. The location of the participants was in the United States. You fill out this form. The platform will take that information and generate a coherent information. Again, this is human first because you are the one supplying the information. The platform just takes it and makes it coherent for you. And the same applies to the other parts, right? The same way we described, that's what applies to everything. Now, when you're done, you can then clean up the whole document and then work on it. The last thing I want to comment on before we open up for questions is citations. When you're done with your work, you then cite. The platform provides you with a very, very extremely robust citation engine. You can import references from wherever they are, from PubMed or from EndNote or wherever you are into the platform. That will be under import. You can search directly from PubMed if you're going to search. I can say, for example, tobacco use among youth. The same way you're going to search PubMed, that's how you're going to search here, right? PubMed is directly linked through here. And the results will be displayed where you can then search them accordingly. If you try to provide citation so let's say this is my abstract. I said, this is my abstract here. If I try to provide citations here, remember that we said there are certain parts of the manuscript that you should not provide references in. Well, if you try to say, I want to cite this and this, here, I'm just selecting any random citations, by the way. It's going to tell you that, well, this is very unusual. References are not typically included in this part of a manuscript. Are you really sure you want to do this? Of course, it's your manuscript. Whatever you want, you can do, right? If you say, yeah, just limit to whatever I want, the platform will say, all right, sure, you're the boss, and we provide the citations as needed. But the platform provides you with an extremely robust citation system, such that you can, write, analyze, cite, and do everything in one single place. All right, I think I've talked enough. Let me now open up to questions. This is the time when you now speak and ask all your questions. I saw there were some hands up there.
Thank you, Prof. Yes, if you have any questions, please raise your hands if you'd like to ask. And if you posted your questions much earlier, please post them again because I might miss them. We will be sharing the attendance link right now. Yes, Prof is done. Thanks. Can the Chi-Squares platform be used for systematic review papers?
So yeah, we haven't integrated the systematic review. So you can, of course, you can search PubMed from here, but I'm going to interpret that question to mean, do you have a platform that would do a meta-analysis? Because systematic review simply means you can just simply go to RefWorks, to the citation engine and search your references and all of that. So you can do that part, but we are building, one of the things in our pipeline is a robust engine for meta-analysis, because you'll find that the infrastructure that exists for meta-analysis is not, I mean, it's great, but there's huge room for improvement in how we could think about the engineering of it and its appropriateness for what we do, and in considering sources of bias in the design of such studies. So we are building something like that, but it's not part of this current release.
Thank you. Is the Chi-Squares platform free?
We have a freemium model. It's for basic things you can use it for free, but for advanced functions it's not free. There's a pricing on the platform starts with the basic. I'm sure you can find the information there.
All right, you can check out our website for that. Thank you, Prof, for the informative session. What is the purpose of using a reference group in the model?
A reference group serves to provide a reference for which the results have been provided. It's like saying that if I say most statements we make in life are relative. If I say, wow, he's rich or he's poor, that implies that there is a context in which that is being said. So if I say, he's poorer, the obvious question will be poorer compared to what? So a reference group provides a framework, a comparison to which we can provide results, right? Because that's the only way we can interpret results, when there is comparison. So that's what a reference group does. It provides that framework against which all other groups are compared. So if our reference group for let's say sex is males, that means that the results for females are being compared to those for males.
Thank you. The citation you mentioned, is it generating in-text citation over something? Over the references to be documented after your discussion?
Okay, let me go ahead and, am I still sharing my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. Let's answer that question by just demonstrating how this works. So if I want to show let's say add some citations here, and let's say I added these 2 citations here, it's going to add them in this, it's going to do 2 things. It's going to first of all add it in my citation library so that I always have access to read. I selected here instead of here. But anyway, ignore the positioning. So here I've cited 2 references, 1 and 2. They are automatically added to my citation library, and they will automatically be added to the references, right? So as I add the citations to my work, the platform will automatically add them to your reference section, right? And then I can also always choose to, so that's why also you see number of references 2, because I just added 2. The ones I have added already automatically have a flag that says cited, because they've already been cited. I can also choose to say, all right, I want to add a few more, and as I select, the platform automatically, first of all, adds them in my citation library, and then puts them in the document inline accordingly. And then they are, of course, arranged in the reference section accordingly as well, so that, I don't have to then do citation and then start worrying about how do I manage the corresponding references. So citations are the work in the main text. The references, so these are citations. These ones here, these are citations. And what we have at the bottom are references. Now, the platform also allows you to easily switch between reference styles, so that I might say, okay, I don't want to use this particular reference style. I want to switch. So I can go to settings and go to reference style and say, okay, I don't want to use EMA. I want to use, for example, IEEE, right? And then the platform would, implement. So whichever citation style you want, you can then switch in between those. The same thing applies if you are bringing a document from outside the platform. Let's say you did the work 10 years ago and you want to bring it to the platform, import it as a document into the platform. In that case, what happens is the platform will take that document and it will automatically process it. So let's say here that I wanted to write now, but instead of starting from scratch, I just want to upload a document. And this document, I wrote it 10 years ago. So I can select that document, for example, give it a title, let's say biological case control study. All right, so, and you choose where you have three options. The options are one, or to split the document. So in other words, you're telling the platform that this document was written in sections. There's an introduction somewhere. Just help me split it into the appropriate sections. Or you say, manual split means, no, don't touch my document, right? Don't split anything for me. Allow me to do everything myself because I want to suffer, right? And then the third option is saying, well, leave it as a free-flowing document. So when you choose auto-split, what happens is that the platform will attempt to resolve all your citations. So as it is reading the document in, it pulls the citations. For each reference you have, it's going to take that reference, run to PubMed or Web of Science, check if that reference actually exists in the database of knowledge, right? And then see where there are some parts of that citation that maybe have been missed. Maybe your citation is incomplete because it has a missing DOI or it has a missing year. So this is why this takes up to 10 minutes, because it's doing a lot. And so it does all of those things, and then it takes the restored citations and puts them for you in your library, so that it's now easy for you to now switch between different citation styles. So yeah, so regardless of whether you're creating your document new or whether you're bringing it from externally, the platform has extensive support for citation management.
Thank you, Prof. Question earlier asked, thank you, Prof, for the effort and mentorship. My question reads as follows. 1, I have 6 variables in my data, of which 4 are continuous variables, age and 6 are categorical. Please, Prof, how can I categorize the age group into 0 to less than 1, 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, so that I can compute the mean, standard deviation, mean, max, 75th percentile for each group?
Okay. All right. So let's show you. So you say you have a variable. Let's pick a variable that is continuous. Let's go to so you said you have a variable that is continuous. So let's pick a random variable that is continuous. Let's say, I believe, right. This is not age, but let's just pretend it is for the sake of this. So you're going to go to recode. The platform is going to load the variable, and you say, okay, I want to split it like from this to this. Just click where you want to split it. Let's say you want to split it at this point at 1,600. Just click there and just supply the number and say, oh, I want to split it at this value, and the platform will split it. Or you can say, all right, I want to split it also at this point. Let's say 4,500. I'm just putting random numbers here, and it's going to split it, right? If you don't like where it's split and you want to resize it, you can say, and then you can keep on splitting like that, So this is designed in a way that is intuitive, right? again, remember we said yesterday that the platform is designed for an 8-year-old child. But if an 8-year-old child wants to say, oh, I want to split this here, well, you can just click there and split it, and just put the actual number you want and split it. And so you might split and realize that, geez, I want to resize it. That extensive support provided here. You can say, all right, this is currently 15999 to this. I actually don't want it that way. I want it to be 15 whatever, 1600. To what that's minimum of this, maximum of this. I want to resize it. The platform will do that accordingly, right? So that you have to, you don't have to worry about the mechanics of it. So this is how you can record a continuous variable on the Chisquares platform. Now, remember we said for everything on the Chisquares platform, there's an easy way for people who don't want to suffer. And then there's a hard way for those who like suffering. So for those who like suffering, we've also provided them with the classic method, but it's not as intuitive as this. So you always can choose your suffering, whether you want to suffer or not.
Thank you. There's another question from the same person. How can I generate correlation and regression equations on the scatter plot showing the line of best fit? Thank you.
So that essentially is what we mean by a regression. So a regression tells you the coefficients. So if you have two variables, there are two ways you can do about that, right? If you have, so here you can come to tests and come to correlations, Pearson's correlation, and select your variables. So let's say you have fin weights as the first variable, and the second variable is, let's see if I have any other continuous variable here. Well, I don't, but I'm just going to select any variable here that may or may not make sense. All right. A Pearson's correlation allows you to look at how one variable is correlated to the other, right? And you have an effects measure that tells you the strength of the relationship. So, which is what we call the correlation coefficient, right? So here, for example, you have the correlation coefficient between this variable and this variable is minus 0.016, which tells you that as one increases, right? This is a negative correlation because it's negative. Correlations lie between 0 and 1. So you have 0 here and 1 here. So this is to the other side here, because it's a negative correlation. It's not pretty big because it's, it's 0.016. But yeah, you can use correlation to look at the relationship between them. Or you can use a regression, in this case, a linear regression, to tell you the beta of which quantifies the extent to which one increases as the other one increases or decreases. All right.
Thank you. And then there's a suggestion. Thank you very much, Prof. Oh, sorry. Nice platform. But I suggested if we can have a section that allows for hypothesis testing.
Well, the hypothesis testing essentially is that's the framework to which we do the entire research to test the hypothesis that we have. And the platform provides you with all the tools you need for that full spectrum of activities. So for example, you can survey design allows you to, for example, conduct a survey to collect the data. You can calculate sample size to ensure that you have adequate number of individuals to test that hypothesis, right? Sample size and sampling, rather. Sample size allows you to calculate number, sampling allows you to pick the number of people. So, so the platform has provided with all the tools along that spectrum of what is hypothesis testing. From coming up with the idea, you can go to the AI toolkit, which is a part of the platform that allows you to, come up with research questions and all of that to test this hypothesis that you may have in mind. So you may need to explore across the broad range of the platform, but all the tools that you need are there to formulate, test, and report the results of the testing.
Thank you. Can I use this platform for data analysis in entomology?
You can use it for data analysis in any field.
Okay. Do you have any guide that can help us step wisely carry out this writing and analysis?
Yeah, we have guides on analysis, but I think the best thing is to realize that it's a science and an art. So you can develop your own step approach, right? You can, again, and if you're not never sure, you always come to if you're never sure, just always come to the analysis suggester will tell you step by step, because your research questions might differ. So there may not be a one size fits all. But the analysis suggester will provide you with the step-by-step guidance based on the inputs that you provided.
Thank you. Someone says they can see only dollar subscription. What of Naira?
Well, we're a US-based company, so yeah, so that's the reason. So that's quite a tricky. Yeah, we unfortunately we benchmark our prices in dollars because we're a US company. But that's something we could work on in the near future. But for now, unfortunately, the dollar is the only denomination in which we do business.
If you already have a complete written manuscript, please, Prof, go through how to use the platform to improve each section of the manuscript using AI.
All right. So if you have a document, manuscript that is already fully developed, you can import the document. This is the one that we're importing. I think it's still validating the references. So so you might have to allow it. Note that it takes, if you're importing the document, especially if you want it to validate the content, specifically the references, it's going to take you up to 10 minutes because like the process I described earlier, accessing the references, validating all of them. Once that is done, there are tools here provided to allow you to use them in that regard. One is the check. The pre-peer review check allows you to, it's like, think of it as a peer review system where the platform is looking at your document and making sure that the content is fine scientifically. If there are flaws in your document, it points them out. So this is a very useful tool you can use to check your document against the scientific content to tell you whether there are flaws. But again, note that this is AI. We use AI there. Of course, we've programmed it very carefully, but AI can make mistakes. So whenever AI is involved, I always like to put that big fat disclaimer that, you're dealing with AI. So just be mindful of it, of what comes out. And that's why on things that are sensitive, AI is never used on the Chisquares platform. Anything that has to do with methodology of a manuscript generation or the results or any kind of data, for those reasons, we cannot allow AI to even touch it because of that risk. But for other things that are supporting, well, you can try your hand on this. I'm pretty sure you're going to find it very helpful for contents that you've already generated externally.
Okay, I think that's all.
All right. So going back to the analysis, I'm going to give you homework. I'm not sure how many people will do it, but it's going to be based on this. Or you can try your hand on, I'll still give the homework, though I'm not sure most of you will do it, but I think it's, practice makes good, as the saying goes. But it was very nice, having this 3-day workshop. And thank you very much for everyone who who hung through to the end. All right. Any last words, Longile?
No, Prof, there's a lot of appreciation for you and the platform. So everyone appreciates the knowledge shared before the demo and the demo itself. So thank you. And when are we having the next session?
Well, we'll announce it very soon. So make sure you follow us on LinkedIn so that when we put these announcements, you can be aware of them.
All right. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, everyone. We look forward to seeing you again, especially trying the platform, doing your analysis and writing your manuscripts. Do let us know your thoughts. Always share them. We're always available on WhatsApp and all our groups if you need any extra help. We are there all the time. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Prof. Bye.
Bye.
You have two paths. One leads to writer's block, the other to writer's luck. Writer's block. You've been staring at a blank screen for 3 days. Nothing's flowing, no words, no stats, no clue. Writer's luck. That's when you discover Chisquares. It's like magic, but real. One platform where you can collect data, analyze results, write your paper, and even publish, all in a single day. So what'll it be? Writer's blog or writer's luck?